Good afternoon. We are Enzo Camacho and Lien. We're collaborating artists and writers who work in alignment with the anti-imperialist and anti-feudal mass movement of the Philippines. And we're very thankful and honored to be here and to be a part of this amazing gathering. The project that we're going to share comes out of work that we've been doing over the past several years, which centers on a sugarcane plantation island in the Philippines called Negros. Negros is the #1 sugar-producing region of the country. It produces over 50% of Philippine sugar, and it's also the island where my mother is from. As with all plantation zones across the world and throughout history, Negros is also a site that has been fundamentally shaped by violence in various forms. There is the violence that has been done to the native ecology. Negros is an island that used to be almost entirely covered in jungle. The vast majority of that has been cleared away to make space for sugarcane, along with the indigenous communities that had been inhabiting that land. There's also the daily economic violence of exploitation that's inflicted upon the island's sugar workers, most of whom have been trapped for generations in cycles of debt, poverty, and hunger. And then there are the very direct and very brutal forms of political violence against activists and organizers. For the past 11 years, the Philippines has been the deadliest country in Asia for land and environmental defenders. In 2018, it was ranked the deadliest country in the world. Much of this violence has been happening in plantation zones, with Negros being one of the primary hotspots. So this really is a very urgent and ongoing human rights crisis, and it's something that we wanted to call attention to, particularly here in the US, where many of your tax dollars are going towards funding and training and arming the Philippine military, who is directly responsible for so many of these deaths. At the same time, we should also keep in mind that these recent killings are part of a much longer history of political violence. And we think it's very important to look back at the past in order to understand and contextualize what is happening in the present.
In 1985, during the dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos, a massive demonstration brought thousands of people into the streets of a small town in Negros called Escalante. They came from various walks of life, including students, mothers and children, fisher folk, small peasant farmers, and, of course, sugar workers. And their demands were simple: livable wages, affordable tuition, and, importantly, genuine land reform. This means the breaking up of large plantation properties in order to redistribute the land to the farmers who till it. In response, state-affiliated paramilitary troops opened fire on the crowd. At least 20 people were killed, many more injured and traumatized. So the footage that you are seeing behind us was taken in 2022 in a progressive church in Escalante on the anniversary of this tragic incident. During this commemorative mass, survivors walked down the aisle of the church holding symbolic items representing the different social sectors that had gathered at the protest in 1985. This was really incredibly moving for us to witness. It was almost as though the protest itself was resurrected in the form of a spiritual ritual of remembrance and mourning. It was at this event that we were also able to connect with some of the survivors who learned that we were artists and who offered to be interviewed. And these interviews became the foundation for our new documentary film, which will be on view here next month at MoMA PS1.
In total, we spent about 5 months on the island to produce this film. And during this time, we stayed in a town just next to Escalante, where we found a house in a small coastal neighborhood. The families there mostly make their living from fishing and odd jobs like seasonal plantation work. And over time, we began to develop close relationships with some of our neighbors, In particular, a group of children who began to come over to our house almost every day after school and on weekends for casual art-making sessions with us. They also took us around to the beach, to the local fish and vegetable market, and to their other favorite spots, proudly showing us the richness of their land. But at the same time, they shared how difficult it was for their families to make ends meet, and it became very clear how the feudal structures of land ownership actually manufacture poverty out of such natural abundance. And something interesting started to happen during this time. The research that we were doing on the Escalante Massacre and the community work that we were doing in our neighborhood started to converge. We learned, for example, that the grandparents of one of the families had actually been key organizers of the mass demonstration in Escalante and had survived the massacre themselves. For years, they had been reluctant to share this experience, even with their family and close neighbors. But they understood very well the importance of this history, and after meeting us and learning about our project, they offered to share their testimonies for the film.
We also learned that the cemetery where many of the massacre victims were buried was just down the street from where we were staying. And it was the same cemetery where our neighbors would visit their deceased. It's a working people's cemetery, a jumbled plot of graves and ancient trees surrounded on all sides by sugarcane fields. So for the climactic scene of our film, we decided to restage the commemorative procession that you saw earlier with our young neighbors as performers in the local cemetery and leading to the grave of the massacre's youngest martyr, a 14-year-old girl named Robena Franco. This performance was one way to pass on the memory of what happened in Escalante to this younger generation, who are the ones who hold the future of their island. So we would just like to end by mentioning that yesterday, September 20th, was the 39th anniversary of the Escalante Massacre. And today, September 21st, is the day that we commemorate Ferdinand Marcos's declaration of martial law in the Philippines. As we speak, there are demonstrations being organized by Filipino communities all around the world, including here in New York, in Woodside. There's a vigil organized by Malaya and Anagbayan starting at 5:30 p.m. So although we made our film as a tribute to the victims of the Escalante Massacre, we strongly believe that a film on its own is not enough. It is only through the sustained collective work of agitating, organizing, educating, and mobilizing for justice and genuine liberation for the Filipino people and all oppressed people that we can truly honor the memory of our beloved martyrs. Thank you.
Thank you.